First impressions of visiting the refugees was understanding the huge inequalities that are experienced on our planet. It brought emotions of sadness and it made me realise how lucky I was to be born in a certain country.
I'll never forget the moment I first met the refugees because they're so hopeful and they're so hospitable, yet we find small things to complain about in our everyday life.
Je suis pas certain pourquoi je suis ici, mais en tout cas, je vais vous parler un peu. Having the opportunity to go in Jordan to work with refugee camp, it was amazing because I had the opportunity to see that what we see on TV and what the media are showing us is not actually necessarily the real world. We don't see the atrocity that happened there, and we don't see the actual life, how they have to live.
In England, you just don't realise how lucky you are, and when we went to Jordan, it really kind of hit you just how lucky you actually are, and it was just an incredible experience. And when we went to the refugee camp, when we saw how they were living, it was just appalling, and you can't even imagine what it's like to live that every single day. And the fact that they were so welcoming was incredible.
Visiting the Syrian refugee camp was a life-changing experience, trying to understand their losses, sharing their emotions, the stories. It made me realise as a student from Britain what I had compared to what they had, sharing amongst them as families, which was fairly minimal.
The refugees displayed huge amounts of generosity throughout their actions and when we visited them. This generosity has driven me to look at other ways we can support them too. Formation of Refugee Hope is going to offer refugees, especially in Jordan, a chance to re-establish links with the Western world and have a chance at living dignified and normal lives.
It's time for us to just open our eyes to what's happening in the Middle East and give a helping hand, because we have everything we need in England.
One thing we don't realize in the media is everything's gonna, we think that it's gonna go for a few months, a year, but we don't realize that people can be born as refugees and they will die as refugees 60 years after, 70 years after in the Palestinian refugee camp, for example.
I experienced an immensely privileged childhood compared to the children of Syria. Play for All, Growing for Disaster, these are two of Refugee Hope's projects aiming to bring normality to these children's lives and bring them a sense of relief.
One of the things that really struck me when we went to the refugee camp were the women there. They had lost their husbands and been excluded from the rest of the camp. So we took them over as much of the supplies as we could, and they were so grateful and so welcoming. They invited us in and gave us some of the water that we'd just given them. This really struck me as it showed me how little they had, but how much they were willing to give back. And I think this charity is going to be really beneficial to these sorts of people.
So this is why we came up with the idea that people, they don't only need to have some supply, food and blanket to survive. They need to have this, but because we don't know how long they're going to be there, they don't even know how long they're going to be there, how long the conflict's going to go on for. So what they need is opportunity. So we decided to come up with a charity. We will try to bring them some different opportunity, like bring them some different skills, and to do this we will work with the university, because the university is teaching a lot of different skills that can be a lot useful for all the refugees.
With this charity, there's a chance to help them. A lot of the kids won't get an education, and they've got a really tough life ahead of them, and this charity aims to kind of support them and to help them as much as we can.
Having the opportunity to play football with some of the children, but also listen to some of the adults, I want to personally help support these people by providing essentials and long-term sustainability, which we can do through Refugee Hope.
After visiting the refugee camp, we all came back to our hotel and realised we needed to do something. So we set out about raising money for the refugees through Facebook, our friends and family, anyone we could get in contact with, and in 48 hours managed to raise £4,500. We then used this to buy essentials for the refugees, such as food, toys for the children and warm blankets for the winter. That's what this charity is aiming to do. As well as giving them hope for the future, we aim to supply so they don't have to be cold throughout the winter, so they do have enough food and the children can get an education while having fun.
It wasn't enough just helping them in Jordan, that was just a drop in the ocean, and working with Refugee enables me to help with so many different projects which will help the refugees better their lives.
Now you've seen what Refugee Hope have already achieved.
And we're looking for some more projects.
We need Coventry University.
We hope you can join us.